Welcome back to the Disaster Tough podcast. I'm your host, John Scardina. I am so excited for this episode. I get to bring Prescott Nadeau back on the show, who has since the last time we had him on. Actually, I think we preluded it before, but he is running a podcast on the Readiness Lab network. It is called Life Fire Layout. It's an awesome podcast about life, fire, and layout from the firefighter perspective, because he's a captain in the fire service. It's a really great podcast, so make sure you check out that one. But today, we're going to be talking about one of his great passions, as he's talked about before, which is all about talking to the press. Prescott is literally on the news every single day in Vermont. He's very, very good at his job. It's the reason why we brought him on. So he has those communications chops that he can bring to the Readiness Lab. But at the same time, when we're talking all about the press, that's a really stressful situation. And so what he wanted to talk about today was how to manage all those emotions, all that stress, all that pressure. And I thought it was a great idea to talk about because it will apply to everything else in the emergency services world, especially for emergency managers who work at that strategic level in disaster and have to deal with a lot of personalities, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and how to get the job done by being cool and collected, right? So in every single after action report, we talk about communication. That interpersonal communication is such a huge thing. It can derail everything if you're not under control. So Prescott's going to help us learn how to do that. So let me bring him onto the show right now. Prescott, welcome to Disaster Tough.
John Scardina, thanks for having me.
Dude, it's always good to see you, man. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's such a good thing.
You too, especially on an awesome, what are we, Thursday, not quite afternoon yet.
Thursday, yeah. Actually, we're going to actually make this a really quick turnaround because there was construction all around our office. The podcast studio is still being worked on, but actually outside yesterday and the day before, it took them 2 days to repave our parking lot. So it was just like noise. So we didn't record. So, sir, thank you for coming on and helping me put an episode out today. It was great.
Yeah, you're so welcome, and thanks for thanks for humoring me on allowing this topic of overcoming emotion, because you nailed it in your intro. I am super passionate about communications in general, but one of the things that I had identified pretty early on in my career as a PIO was that emotion can get the best of you.
Sure.
It's definitely gotten the best of me, and unfortunately, in doing when I fell in love with PIO stuff, I started doing nerdy things like watching press conferences, even though if it had nothing to do with like Vermont or my department. And man, well, I tell you, there was so many examples that came forth of folks that unfortunately allowed emotion to get the best of them.
My favorite, like a news clip of a press brief where the emotion got the best of him. I think it's the mayor in Toronto, who's a fairly famous dude for being a unique guy, but he gets all heated and he's like, "We're ending this press conference right now." And as he's walking away, the media asks him like another like really emotionally charged question, and he turns around and he starts talking to him for like another 15 minutes. Like they were able to manipulate him 100% because they were able to attack his emotion.
Yep.
And they got soundbite after soundbite after soundbite. My favorite part was him saying, "I'm taking authority, command and control. We're ending this." And he wasn't able to end it because he wasn't able to think, right?
No.
Like all that emotion just got right up involved. So, yeah. The L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio solves problems and is specifically designed for emergency services. How do we know? We field tested it with medical, urban search and rescue, and collapse and confined structures. This radio is amazingly tough. Check out the L3 Harris Extreme 400p radio at l3harris.com right now. How do you spell Doberman Emergency Management? EOP, OEP, HVA, HMP, Thyra, TTX, Drone, PDA. Whenever you need an expert, Doberman Emergency Management field experts are there for support. Contact an expert at DobermanEMG.com today.
I attribute it to so I have a 5-year-old, and my 5-year-old often has tantrums, as many 5-year-olds do. And legitimately, I attribute some of people when they get emotionally charged, similar to my 5-year-old. I can't talk to him in that moment when he's emotionally charged. Cannot communicate.
Yes.
And often have to physically remove him from point A to point B to sort of help that situation. Is as weird as it is to attribute the attitude of a 5-year-old to grown adults in like a media release or press conference scenario, it is so true. If you find
Oh,
yourself getting into that emotional outbreak scenario, you will not be able to fully process the information or think, and what's
mm.
going to come out of your mouth is not going to be what you want.
Okay, whether people like this or not, the best like psychology training I got for both parenting and for emergency management was Daniel Tiger.
I love
Uh,
Daniel Tiger.
yeah, like the whole thing, like when the kids are doing a tantrum, they're saying like mad, mad, mad helps to say I'm mad, and you're like, okay, now take a deep breath, count to 4, and now I can understand you because I can't understand you when you're screaming. And the other big thing I do with my kids is like major distraction, like when they're all mad.
Yeah.
I start repeating back to them exactly what they're saying, and like really confuses them. Like my 2-year-old, she'd be like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and I'll be like, "Mommy." She's like, "No, I'm supposed to say mommy," and it immediately stops her. I'm like, "I know you're thinking." So, like, real talk, there's a lot of adults, myself included, who need to take notes from Daniel Tiger about dealing with emotion. Another big thing, this is kind of funny, this is like really off topic, but uh they were talking to O the Owl. This is how much I know this show, and it's kind of embarrassing. But O the Owl is acting kind of crazy in the show, and his I think uncle says, "Hey, it's okay to feel 2 feelings at the same time." The whole thing on that.
Ugh.
And it was like, this is seriously embarrassing. I'm like 30s, in my 30s, right? Late 30s. And I was like, holy crap. Like, yeah, you can feel 2 feelings at the same time. And once I did that, I was like, I honestly was able to deal with my emotions so much better. It's so weird.
John, so you laugh about it, being in your 30s and relying on kids shows. For any of the listeners who don't have children, that's okay. I'm not saying like go check out Daniel Tiger, although it's awesome.
You
Um,
totally should, yeah.
what I am saying though, and I think what you will gain benefit from this episode and a bunch of others on either on Disaster Tough or on my own Life File Layout, is we try to bring things down to a digestible and understandable level. So I've
Yes.
got like my reason for being is to try to, emphasize crisis communication in the field. And there are, one of the ways to digest information easily is by I call it, well, I don't call it anything. Aristotle 2000 years ago called it the R3 technique, which is those digestible chunks of information, coming up with, 3 sort of bullet points of information that folks can walk away with at the end of the day. And honestly, John, if you're okay with it, referencing how simplistic we can be, whether it be Daniel Tiger telling our children / adults too how to control emotions in a respectful way, the way that we as adults can, especially if you're a PIO or anything in the communications field, can sort of control those emotions is remember these 3 things. Tell them what you know, tell them what you don't know, and tell them what you are doing to find out.
Love
So
that.
tell them what you know, tell them what you don't know, and tell them what you're doing to find out.
Hmm.
The reason it's that simple is this: where people get in trouble, everyone's emotions get heated. Sort of obviously, whether the disaster is man-made, such as like an active shooter situation, or a natural disaster, hurricane, wildfire, something like that, people's emotions are already heightened. Then you involve something like children or other vulnerable populations.
Yeah.
And their emotions just went through the roof to a point where, especially the public or even the media, are going to really want to hit on those to get you. You nailed it, John. That sound bite, because I love my partners in the media, love them and respect them, but they truly are. They have a job to do, and they want a good sound bite.
Yeah.
So for us to control that,
yeah, you have to control that, right? Like you want the soundbite to be the soundbite you want them to give, not the like, oh shoot, this is gonna be embarrassing, right? And if you don't have a good rapport with them, reporter with them, they're gonna use that, right? You and I talked about this a little bit offline, and there's a little bit of teaser for the audience here, but there's things every single day that I see in the field, whether it's an after action from a school shooting that was made by some cookie cutter joke consultant that didn't hire the real deal, and so the thing is just worthless, or some other big name group that promotes itself to be, X is just like you find out like how they make the sausage, and you're like, oh, they're really a terrible company. There's things every single day that make me angry. And I think I have created seriously 50 different podcasts going in thinking I have an audience and I have a message and I'm going to like just blast these people. And at the end of the day, after I'm done getting all the emotion out by myself, thank goodness. I've never, ever, ever, and I never will uh, share those podcasts. Like literally, after I'm done recording it, I'll like listen to it once, be like, okay, I got all my emotion out, delete the episode. I've deleted about 50 episodes just so this podcast can stay positive and informative and all these things. I think like one of the closest ones I got recently was probably Hawaii. Really disappointed about what happened. And yet, instead of taking that emotional piece of like, this is, my feelings on blah, I turned it into something positive. Hey, here's the lessons learned. This is how you avoid that kind of situation instead of just saying, everybody sucks, blah, 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 blah. So, how do
So
you do that though in real time? Because I have the special opportunity to pre-record these. When you're in front of the media who's just charged at you, how do you um, cancel that charge?
yeah, I hear that, and so going back to what I had mentioned earlier with the R3, what that is
Mm.
it's coming up with those 3 bullet points, which I listed earlier for this episode. Those are the 3 that I chose. But if before you go in front of the media, if you remember that I want to tell them what I know, I want to tell them what I don't know, and I want to tell them what I'm doing to find out. And then pick 3 things that the main bullet points, we call it flagging, right? What do you want to emphasize to control that message? Now, humor me. Boom, I'm hitting on my 3 bullet points, whether it be a fire safety talk with the media, pre-recorded, or a live discussion about a hazardous material spill that just occurred or natural disaster. Boom, I've got my 3 points that I'm in my head. I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to try to give them some supporting facts, 3 supporting facts if I can, and I'm going to try to repeat it 3 times. Now, here's what the media is going to do, John, is they're going to say, they might know a little bit of what's going on, and whether they do this on purpose or not, they're going to try to derail it in order to, because they don't like the pre-scripted stuff. They want to hear, natural John, natural Prescott, whether it be raw and emotional or not. And so what they're going to ask you is those fired up, heated questions. And when you are in that moment, if you can go back to those 3 points no matter what, and even if they ask you an emotionally charged question and you acknowledge like I probably have an answer for that, but you don't know 100%, then guess what? The thing to do is to bridge. We call it bridging, right?
Mm.
So if you bridge to something, you can, even if they ask a question, you don't have to answer that exact question. You can say something like, what the public really needs to know is, or as I think they should know, what really the main point I'm trying to express is this. The media is not going to be like, oh, Prescott, you didn't answer our question. I need you to, and I'm going to repeat that. No, at that point, they know that you aren't going to get to that point. And you have just controlled that message. You've guided it towards your 3 main points that you came up
Yes.
ahead of time.
Well, you and I did this. I should share this video. I got interviewed. So just like back up everybody. Everything that Prescott is saying is not only perfectly accurate of what you should do, really great advice, but I was able to practice it in real time. So I'm going to back way up. You came on the podcast once and you helped me create content for a class I was teaching in SLU about media. I'm expert in some areas. I need experts in other areas, and you helped me make like literally the best course possible. So thank you for that, sir. And then because I learned from you when we were in St. Louis together for the dynamic populations course, it was Fox 2 now. I think it was KMOV or Fox 2. I think it was Fox 2, who called me at 6 a.m. and said, we are going to be at your hotel where you guys are doing your training for the first 2 days, and we want to interview you. Yeah, and I was like, okay. So I called you at, it was like 6:20 in the morning, and you were just waking up, and I said, hey, I need I need a PIO to help me out. And so I told you my 3 points. You agreed, or you fixed those points a little bit for me. And I gave this live interview.
Awesome.
And it was perfect
It was.
because I used a real PIO, the real training. I was you like you said, be brilliant, be brief, be gone. And
Yes.
I love those things. And I love telling them what you know, telling them what you don't know, telling them how you're going to find out. Luckily for me, it was all about things I knew. So we just told them what we did. And they specifically asked how we could compare counterterrorism training to hurricanes because it was good for their soundbite. And we were able to do that seamlessly because of our 3 points, that bridging thing that you're talking about. So really, really fascinating of like from a guy who doesn't get in the media very often to someone who does all the time like yourself. I was able to knock it out of the park because of you and your advice. So if anybody's like afraid to talk to the media, just memorize what Prescott is telling you to do and you'll be fine. Right.
And to that point, John, first of all, it was that example, and thank you for bringing it up because that was a really neat opportunity for me. In my department as the PIO, I often am also the spokesperson. My chief has put enough trust in me to not just do the background information, but also be the spokesperson for the organization. A lot of PIOs are not that, they don't adopt that role. They are the background person that comes up with the 3 bullet points and really sort of briefs the spokesperson on what's happening. What I saw was that briefing, and you're good anyway, John, to your credit. So it was nice to have that level of the knowledge was already there. It was simply crafting that knowledge into not a bunch of stuff. It was really saying, we know we have such small sound bites and we want to pull some good information from that. And we were able to do that. The video that came out at the end really proved to me that with not a ton of lead time and also not a ton of coffee, we were able to produce what
None
ended up
for
with some
me.
sweet sound bites. Yeah, I can't. Oh man,
Don't do the coffee thing. But yeah, I'm all in for if Monster wants to sponsor my podcast, I'd be all in for that. But it was interesting. Just woke up early in the morning. I had been, so it was day 2 of our training, which means I had only gotten like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, just exhausted, but we stuck to what we knew. And what was shocking to me was that I thought they were going to use like 10 to 15 seconds of that, and they shared the entire video, like,
Yep.
and they did it twice on live. So it's like, oh, that was like a 2 or 3 minute like video. That's like a lot of media time.
Yes.
By the way, funny enough, can I tell you a funny story about that?
Yes.
I'm a soccer coach for my kids, my 2-year-old team and my 4-year-old team, and we are rock stars. We're freaking killers. But that's a whole other thing. One of the kids showed up on the 3rd week. He'd signed up late, and there was some travel and some other stuff, and they didn't know who we were or where we were going to be playing at. So the husband who showed up, Coach Josh, shout out to you. I call him Coach Josh now. All the parents call him Coach. But he shows up, and he was like, "Hey, you're this guy, right?" And they show he had a screenshot of me from the counterterrorism news clip. His wife was like, "Hey, look for this guy," because she had known who I was, and they'd watched the news, and so she had gone online, found the clip, and took a screenshot of it, and said, "You're this guy, right?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I had no idea that I had no expectation that anybody that I would know or my circle would probably see that, or care to like watch it, that random thing. But
so
yeah,
take that exact example, John, and say, all right, let's take that, the civilian world, or the correlation between here we are doing this training, dynamic populations, which was an awesome training, by the way.
we had
And
great instructors, by the way. One guy in particular, the PIO guy.
Shout out. But
now, in the field.
I got popped the bubble in my head.
Yeah.
But now take that exact scenario. We had this training, and then the media came in a controlled environment, and then the recognition afterwards at, a number of weeks later at a kid's soccer game where parents are recognizing you. So everything was in a positive light. Now take that exact scenario and correlate it to a disaster scenario. Something bad has just happened. You have an opportunity to get in front of the media, and next thing you know, you're crafting that message, you're nailing those 3 points, and weeks later, you are being remembered for that positive message that you crafted, not getting in front of there being plastered. You're throwing tables and stuff. Yeah. No.
I don't feel guilty at all about not sending out the mass notification that killed hundreds of people. Oh, okay. That's the clip. That's the clip.
Don't be known, and that is the one that will be repeated. I just listened to an episode of from a while ago, an incident with an active shooter situation where they didn't, for 5 hours, they did not put out information that the shooter was still at large and armed. Like 5 hours. That is not something you want to be known for. You want to be known for
No.
within X period of time, a lot less than 5 hours. We got the message out there. It was on our terms, and the public is safer because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the reality is like there's so many people in our field who try to pretend that they can separate their worlds. You can't. Soccer game, a parent showing up and having a screenshot of me on their phone, to be able to identify me, which I was like, okay, like this is normal now.
Yep.
Because of the podcasting, I kind of have this like unique relationship with media where I don't consider myself media, but I'm producing media.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't go to a conference now without people recognizing me coming up. And by the way, for all those people who have come up to me, thank you for saying hi and love getting that challenge coin and giving you a challenge coin and all that whole thing. But I'm not anonymous anymore. Like it's that ship has sailed. At the same time, we can control the worlds. Like we're not trying to be like the ridiculous celebrities in the world. We have this realm, and don't be afraid of that. Like, I think there's so much good that can come out of that stuff, right?
Well, leaning into what you just said, blending those worlds together because they're already blended, whether we want to admit it or not.
Sure.
And although I agree, like in a celebrity type situation, getting that constant barrage cannot be fun in any way, shape, or form. But acknowledging, leaning into some of that, and recognizing to get that professional media training, which we offer, by the way, to how to do this better. Reach out to John, reach out to myself, to if you're sitting, wow, these are great lessons. How, I have about a dozen people who need more of this. Don't delay, because I'm telling you right now, the crisis isn't going to wait. Whether you're in the blue sky time and you're trying to do a media interview and you really want to nail it, or you're in the midst of a crisis, man-made or natural, we want you to be the best you can be, and we have the ability to do that.
Whether you're in your life, you're in a fire, or you're dealing with a layout.
I see what you
Podcast
did there.
Hey, I'm going to give just one tip, if I can, to the audience of how to deal with that emotion stuff. If you're really, really anxious and you're about to give this presentation or you're about to get in front of the media, or if you're in any situation where you're just like, you really can feel it, I would do 2 things or maybe 3 things immediately. One, I would do this breathing exercise that is a military thing that I found is phenomenal for me. It's really helped me out. They say 4, 4, 4, 4, but I do 8s because 4 is too short for me. But essentially, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold that for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold that for 4 seconds, and do it 4 times. Now, I do 8 seconds because apparently I have the lungs of lungs, but doing that 4 times has instantly reduced my stress level. I do this other thing is where I try to find like a random spot. When I say random, I don't care if people see me or not. Sometimes I will do about 15 push-ups just to like get some of that energy out. And the other thing I do is I might go in the bathroom and splash some water in my face and put the water on the back of my neck. Those kind of things of just like changing your physiology and just like disrupting like what you're thinking about can be great for reducing that stress. It might build back up again, but it's at least reduced it long enough where you can go out there for that 30 minutes and do your thing and then call it good. Right. So those are the things I would do.
And God, John, those are fantastic. I want to say it's called, the breathing technique you said is box breathing.
Yeah,
and only
right.
because the fire service is really big into box breathing. Another one for any firefighters listening is the Riley breathing technique. That's the one I use personally, but that's more of an air conservation technique, not so much like a media thing. However, everything you just mentioned, number one, do it if it works for you. But the last thing that I will mention is John said it earlier, I have had a number of media appearances, and what I will tell the listeners is every single time I am still nervous. I've done enough that I probably shouldn't be as nervous, but I will tell you, I still get those nerves. What I am able to do to overcome that those nerves in the moment is recognize that I know what I'm doing. Like, tell myself, you know what you're doing. I've got my 3 points. I know these 3 points, and I sort of that positive self talk. If you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to know more, listen to this one, listen to the previous episodes, attend any of the trainings that, that John, it brings me out to. And the reality of it is that's what it takes is training. The more training you have, even if it's one time of just, taking video of yourself, that we did this at DIPOP. We actually had a breakout exercise in which I had a cell phone and we asked questions in a mock media scenario, and they got to see themselves in a mock press conference, listen to themselves, see themselves, and I was asking tough questions. So they did a great job, and some of the feedback I got afterwards was that it was neat to be able to have that video audio component in a, I say stress-free. I mean, we made it stressful on purpose, but at the end of the day, that video went nowhere. It was deleted off my phone or sent to the folks if they wanted to see it next time. So training.
Okay. Speaking of training, I got to do this big plug, and I should have done this in the beginning. Oh my gosh. You can actually see Prescott and I in person, and Prescott will be doing some real training on this stuff at the National Urban Search and Rescue Conference in like 2 or 3 weeks in Orlando, the 7th and 8th, that we're going to be down there. The conference is a little bit longer than that, but you can actually still sign up with the discount code 10% off TRL 2023. So TRL 2023, you can get a 10% discount code off of the SUSAR website. It's kind of a funny name for the National USAR, but that's fine. SUSAR.org, I believe. So if you can check that out, make sure you can see Prescott in there. And Prescott, can we bring some challenge coins to make sure that we hook some people up?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, random thought. You said the boxing technique is what the fire services use. Right?
Box breathing and the Riley breathing technique, both
Riley
really good.
breathing. When firefighters do the box breathing, is it called hot boxing?
Right. But
okay. So a couple things. Again, we're just gonna wrap this up. Prescott, thank you so much again. If you want to see Prescott in person with me in like 2 weeks in Orlando, great place to go out to. I think they're actually it's the DoubleTree in SeaWorld. So it's a very cool place. The National USAR Conference, you can get a discount code for going with the TRL, so TRL 2023. And you get to learn more about how to do public messaging specifically for USAR, but it applies to everybody. So make sure you check that out. If you got something out of this episode, if you've been nervous about getting in front of the media, or if you have been trying to deal with your nerves just in your job, let us know. Let us know that if these techniques are helping you. Maybe not do hot boxing, but the boxing breathing or the Riley breathing technique, or just making sure that, hey, you're going to be remembered for whatever you do. So get it together, talk positive. And with that, again, big shout out for Life Fire Layout with Prescott Nadeau. And we will see you for the next one. Peace.